Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. World of Work Conversations is what we are doing. It's the second time around. Very happy to be speaking once again with the program Dean of Interdisciplinary Studies at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies, Dr. Saadiqa Khan. Topic at hand, intergenerational workforces. Stay tuned for this conversation. Dr. Khan, thank you very much for granting us more insight. I felt like Oliver Twist. Please, may I have some more? But we find ourselves in a society right about now where we have different generations. What are some of the reasons for that coming from where you sit?
Well, the Harvard Business Review has defined the multi-generational workforce in a very specific way. It talks about the operation of multiple generations operating within the work environment. And they've given us some useful classifications. They've given us the baby boomers. It's the baby boomers, who they identify as the baby boomers, people who were born from 1946 to 64. But then there's also Gen X, the millennials, and finally Gen Z. And everybody is now in this workplace operating, as it's been said now, under the fourth industrial revolution, so to speak. And while I want to say that these classifications are important, they're useful, I also want to say that they're also part of the problem in terms of, like these classifications, there's a tendency to stereotype each of these groups. But the reality is this: every generation enters the workforce under certain conditions, and that helps to shape your purpose, your preferences, and your drivers for success. So let me give you an example. If my first job was during the pandemic, then I would have been accustomed to work from home, remote setup, minimal interaction with people from the office. I might not even meet them, and also digital communication. That's really different from a millennial who would have entered the workplace prior to that and would have been accustomed to the fact that I am coming into a physical workspace. I have to learn to interact with people on a face-to-face basis. There's a preoccupation with where you get your office space and certain kinds of hierarchies attached to that. And what we have now is, well, I don't want to use the word collision, but that's exactly what's it's coming to that. There's a collision of all of these mindsets, preferences, attitudes to the world of work. And what I'm saying now is that we are feeling it, and I'm saying that the younger generation is feeling it a little more now. They're bearing the brunt of that. And I think that if we don't manage what can easily become a huge problem in the workplace, it's going to become untenable.
But even before we talk about how it is we can manage, two things come to mind when you say this. One, because of me moving from one place to the other, I now speak about my assigned workstation as opposed to my desk or my computer. And two, I still have an issue with people calling me and asking me, where are you? Because when I first started answering a phone, when I answered the phone, you knew exactly where I was because it's a house phone and I'm in the house. So now I feel like, well, but you're in my business. So when people ask me, where are you? I'll be like, how can I help? So even like those sorts of...
So your communication preferences have changed, all right? And I think that there is a clash that exists in the workplace where we have different generations with these preferences coming together. So whether it is communication preferences, your attitudes to work, what you think work should be, work-life balance, all of those are now clashing in the same space. And I think we need to help everyone prepare and learn how to manage that. Okay, so I think one of the most important ways that we could do that is to understand that each generation that is operating in the workplace has these preferences. And it's so if you're working, especially if we're working in teams, and that is often the case where you have cross-generational teams, and you are managing all of these different personalities and preferences. It's important as a team leader to be able to leverage those to your advantage so that you can get the goals and the task management and allocation done as you see fit. Because we cannot ignore the fact, Dike, that our workplace has changed radically, and it is not going back.
Radically where? Preferences where? Preferences nothing, Dr. Khan. This is the way we're doing this 15, 20, 30 years ago. This is the way we will continue to do it. If you don't like it, you could leave. And these sort of narrative pushbacks that happen when people have conversations like this. But even before we go to that, and we want to talk about managing and the perils of not managing it, what are some of the benefits that we can see in terms of having these workforces that span different generations?
I have two words for you, Dike. Young brains. And you see, young brains are a blessing because there is cognitive diversity. There is agility. There is a kind of resilience and stubbornness that, if harnessed properly, can create innovation that is fueled by diverse perspectives. We also have a talent attraction and engagement that comes with it. So having young brains in the workforce is a blessing that we need to recognize. Nothing is more wonderful, Dike, than having someone who has ideas about how to be able to accomplish, whether it is a goal, whether it is a task, whether it is to approach a project from a different perspective, to be more efficient, to use certain kinds of productivity tools that you may not know about. And what I like is the fact that you are all doing it within the same space. So, because conformity can lead to stalemate. When you have young, fresh brains on board, you have new ideas coming to help you solve problems, make decisions, even manage conflicts. And I think we need to appreciate that more. And it comes with having a mindset from other generations to embrace what we like to call reverse mentoring. So listen, it is not just only me, the older person, the older worker with the industry experience and all the life experiences, giving you and telling you, listen, this is how you need to do X, Y, and Z. I need as an older worker to be able to embrace the fact that a younger person can teach me. All right. And this is not just only about how to convert a PDF. It is about how to be more efficient and effective in solving problems, in being able to understand the different kinds of perspectives that bear on an issue that I may not have considered before, and wanting to learn. And this is where the whole concept of lifelong learning comes in. It is about the willingness and embracing that desire to learn from others who are younger than you.
And I'm glad you raised that point, because sometimes what you can find is that you have people who start off very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and become jaded rather quickly, because there's this idea, well, who is you to be talking to me, who is very tenured and has a level of seniority, and wanting me to not even just embrace, but to consider a different way of doing things. So how do you start?
I have paid my dues. Because you see, it comes back to mindset. There's people who normally operate like that have a tendency to think that young people, you have to put in your time. You have to earn these opportunities that I took forever and so many years to do. And now, look, you have to bat in your crease. You have to stay in your lane. And I think we need to move away from that, because we need to accept that this is their world. This generation that we are working with, they have been born with the internet already and tech at their fingertips. They know these tools. They have not had to make the transition from analog to digital that I have. They have been born with it at their fingertips, and they are very good and agile at using it to be efficient and effective. And I think we need to recognize that they have so many important ideas and ways of seeing things and ways of solving problems. And they're not getting, there's too much gatekeeping in terms of that, because of prevailing mindsets that you need to earn your scars here. It's not about that. Young people see the world of work very differently. They're not about the 9 to 5 thing anymore. And I think the pandemic brought that down, brought that message a little harder for everybody, but especially them. They were like, this is not something that I want to be doing until I am 60 in the same job. I want flexibility. I want to be able to pursue my hobbies and do my side hustles while I'm doing your job. All right. And that lateral way of thinking about work and life as a whole is what is bringing the clash with older generations who are saying, listen, you come here, do your job, you got to grind, put in your hours, and you'll get through. But that does not happen anymore. We need to recognize that young people can do the job. They'll do it faster. They'll find the tech tool to be more efficient at it. And let me tell you something, they are happy to help you. They are happy to help you if you are willing to learn. And I think that is something that is the most encouraging, especially and I'm talking from experience because I work with a lot of young people in my organization. And I mean, it is such a wonderful thing that they can teach me, and that listen, doc, there's a different way we could do this, why not do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, go for it. Go for it. Because guess what? At the end of the day, we are getting the job done within the deadline, and even before that, and you still have time to do other things.
And you raised a point there, and we'll get into it on the other side of the conversation. Not just what is being said, but how it is being said. So, but you talk about young brains, and I felt slightly attacked. I wanted to cover my patch. But we continue the conversation when we return from this break. We're speaking with Dr. Saadiqa Khan, Program Dean of Interdisciplinary Studies at Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. Stay with us. We'll return after this. Welcome back. We are having a conversation about intergeneration workforce. Doing so with the Program Dean of Interdisciplinary Studies at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies, Dr. Saadiqa Khan. Just before we took the break, Dr. Khan, you said something. Yes, young people with young brains are willing to help those individuals who may not have the experience. They weren't born with the mobile phone in their hand, the smartphone. But one of the things I appreciate, though, is how it is we go about it. One, how conversations happen, because every conversation has dynamics of power in it. But yes, sometimes there's the person who's saying, okay, well, this thing is so obvious, why can't you see it? Yeah. And they may make a suggestion, which is a sincere suggestion, but for all intents and purposes, it lacking a little bit of civility. And
yeah,
then
it comes across the wrong way. Yeah.
Yes. So even like I remember I talked to some of the children like that and stuff as well. And she's like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm glad I hear past what I consider to be rudeness. And yeah, some people may talk about not knowing your place, the same thing, disrespect, so you haven't paid your dues. Who is you to tell me this? So and that I think kind of goes back to mindset as well. One, in terms of how information is shared, two, how information is received, and it's a communication thing, which some people may also say is part of different generations coming into contact and engaging with one another.
Yeah,
How do we start to deal with stuff like that?
The thing is, we need to understand that young people, because they are so connected to their devices all the time, and I mean, all of us are pretty much following, we're all to blame in that way, but young people are the face-to-face conversations that older generations would have with each other. The younger generations don't have that. A lot of it is taking place through technology. It's technology mediated. And as a result, a lot of the nuances that come with a face-to-face conversation, the nonverbal skills that you pick up in a face-to-face conversation, all of that is lost through technology-mediated communication. And I think what happens is that it becomes normalized. So when they're put in a face-to-face situation, they are not going to pick up on the nonverbals that might be coming through the face, the body, the posture, even just the eyebrows. And it is something that young people need to learn, because at the end of the day, you are not just only stuck to your device, you have to interact with people at some point. And as you say, it is how you say it. You have to learn that. That is not something that is innate. You have to learn how to match your tone. You have to be able to pay attention to how people are responding to you, how you are responding in turn. You got to see whether or not, is my tone too loud? Is my volume too loud? How am I sounding? But all of those things, as people who are accustomed to face, you learn that regulation very quickly. Young people have to learn how to do that, and it takes time, because even through the technology mediated communication, emotions are translated through emojis. So even the emotions that might be coming through your voice, the rate at which you speak, the non-fluencies that you use, which we might say as disrespectful, they're not seeing that. And I think that's why, as lifelong learners, you need to pay attention to those kinds of skills. We call it soft skills, but it's really hard skills, because it takes time to be able to pick up on the aggressions, the microaggressions, the way in which people, we laugh at it, we create memes about it, bombastic side eye and whatnot. But guess what? Those things carry meaning, and it can affect the relationship dynamics in the workplace in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. So, I mean, that's one way in which we can get the ball rolling. But we also need to meet them halfway too. So I know young people don't like the business of calling. They don't like the conversation. They don't like to have that face-to-face conversation over the phone. Maybe there are instances where, guess what, we can use the texting, but you can set boundaries. So for example, when I have WhatsApp chats with my students when I teach, you set some very clear boundaries about what's permitted on the chat. You say, listen, this is what is considered acceptable. This is not what's considered acceptable. And there will be penalties if you infringe those boundaries. And I think setting up those very clear boundaries helps, because people get to know what's acceptable and what's not. They may not like it, but guess what? In a workplace, there are boundaries that you have to maintain and you have to understand. And that's what keeps things professional and what keeps things informal.
Following on that, defining the word work, things like work hours, and this blending / melding, blurring of lines between what is my time and what is company time. I know many people have issues with, excuse me, did those ticks come up blue? So that means you read my message. Should am I beholden to respond now, or to speak, or to submit a response something closer to work time? When is my time my time? Do you have more of a hold on me? How do you go about navigating some of these issues?
And I think that is a challenge that we will continue to have as our lives become more and more digitally mediated. I think though that setting boundaries always helps, and setting examples, especially if you're in leadership, if you're a manager, you have to understand that people need their downtime. And I think if you say, listen, if after a certain period of time, or if I send you a message at this hour, it is to be understood that I may not respond immediately, or that I will only take WhatsApp messages up to a certain time, unless it's an emergency. I think that helps. But I think at the same time, like for example, I believe in places like Portugal, it is law now that, listen, after the work period, I am not obliged to respond to any work requests or anything like that. Now, like I said, that comes with a culture change. But we also need to respect the fact that even as technology is making our work, change in all of these ways, we need to be able to disconnect. We need that downtime. We need to be able to make, what is it they call it now, the detoxing periods, whether it is away from your phone, whether it is away from your laptop, because there are real physiological impacts attached to it, to being constantly on it. I mean, we are seeing it in terms of how it affects sleep patterns, how it affects the way we interact with each other and whatnot. So I think there is a real case for disconnection, and it is an ongoing conversation, because every workplace will have different norms and codes and ways of operation, because depending on the job that you do, if you're on call now, for example, in certain industries, that doesn't apply. All right, you don't have that downtime or that freedom. But guess what? If at the end of the day you know that you lock off at a certain point, and you tell people, listen, I am available for so and so for so many hours on the weekend, but I think we also need to respect people's downtime from work. We need to disconnect from work if you want healthier, mentally healthy work individuals. Because if you are constantly connected like that, Dike, you're going to burn out. And we are seeing it. People are burning out.
I think we want to let it breathe there. We have run out of time, not topics, and hopefully we can reach out to you in the very near future to have more conversations like this. You see that last thing that it ended on? I'm going to let it breathe. I think I might clip that and just share that to the people in my circle. But thank you very much, Dr. Saadiqa Khan, Program Dean of Interdisciplinary Studies, Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. I invite you to visit the website, the college's website, to see what is happening. There's a raft of initiatives taking place in July and beyond. So thank you very much for your time, Dr. Khan. And on behalf of the entire crew at TTT Limited, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.